Surprise! I surprised you, right? I know I did. I'm a maestro when it comes to surprises. I know all about surprises, which is how I know that in order for a surprise to surprise you, it has to be surprising. That sounds obvious, but, well, you'd be surprised how often that's forgotten when it comes to game development. Video games assume that you will spend quite a lot of time within their worlds, the worlds they've made for you, and they try, a lot of games, to fill their worlds with surprises, with shocks, with things that you don't see coming. Problem is, over the course of many hours, with only a limited number of surprises for you, you get really used to things that happen. You start to see them coming, and the surprising becomes worse than unsurprising. It becomes completely and thoroughly expected. When it's something really annoying, like what Xenoblade Chronicles X tries to surprise you with, well, I end up doing videos about it. But, you know, no surprise there. So anyway, here's a screenshot of a level 20 story mission in Xenoblade Chronicles X. You may notice that all the enemies have level 51 and higher emblazoned above their heads. Here's a picture of a cheeky little fella who's placed in the direct path of anybody concentrating on the level 54 enemies. He's quite big, isn't he? He's also fast. So fast, in fact, that he can close in on you from a distance before you've even seen him. You may notice that this guy hanging out by the level 54 enemies has a level 65 emblazoned above his head. This is all set up around a level 20 destination. In fact, the objective guideline leads you into the aggro range of all of these level 50 and 60 plus enemies. Also, despite Xenoblade Chronicles X having so many systems and mechanics that its own tutorials need a walkthrough, there is no stealth. Well, there's no stealth for you. The enemies are given myriad ways to sneak, hide and lay ambushes, and they'll exploit this advantage pretty much constantly. Why is the game like this? The answer is quite simple. Xenoblade Chronicles X is, to put it entirely politely, a fucking
Skeleton warriors, diddle-dee-doo-da-doo, diddle-doodle-dee, diddle-dee-da-doo. Skeleton warriors!
We're talking about the design of video game worlds today, or rather, juxtaposing game worlds designed in such a way that they feel untamed, unpredictable and unilaterally dangerous against ones whose designers think they're doing the wild and dangerous thing, when in actuality, they're making something that turns the unexpected into the exhaustingly routine. Despite having fond memories of Xenoblade Chronicles X, I have startlingly few memories of Xenoblade Chronicles X. Before playing the recently released Definitive Edition, I had little snatches of recollection. I remembered what a surprising departure from Xenoblade Chronicles it was. I remember how the base area, New LA, felt like a genuine home after a while. I remember there being some cool creature designs and great music with cheesy lyrics. I also remember not getting given the heavily marketed mech suit until I'd put dozens of hours into the game. Even those recollections are hazy, and beyond them, I'd forgotten a lot. Actually, scratch that, there's one big thing I remembered. One literally big thing. A four-armed monkey bastard who's like level, God knows, 80-something, smashing the absolute frozen peas out of me just meters away from headquarters, minutes after the prologue, and by that I mean the prologue's prologue, because Xenoblade Chronicles is just one of those games. Here's the thing though, I have no recollection of that kind of experience being the norm throughout the game. My memory of the four-armed monkey bastard is of it being a warning, a practical demonstration that you should keep the hell away from the biggest, toughest monsters. And somehow I'd forgotten that in this hateful, sadistic little game, the biggest, toughest monsters won't stay away from you. I checked though. According to my followers on Blue Sky, it was always like this. It wasn't something the definitive edition had done to fuck up the balancing. The game's world was always one big bait-laden trap. A bully's playpen that Monolith Soft seemed to have designed for the express purpose of winning against the player. I don't know why that didn't stick in my mind. What I do know is that I like Xenoblade Chronicles X, and Xenoblade Chronicles X can go fuck itself. This is Trebus the Wood Boy, patrolling what is essentially the starting area of Elden Ring. I'd put Trebus as a placeholder in the script because I couldn't remember his actual name while writing it, but I'm too attached to it now, so. I like Trebus the Wood Boy. I mean, I don't like him per se because he's a brutal, bloody sod, but I like how he's implemented, the purpose he serves. He is Elden Ring's four-armed monkey. If you fuck around immediately after venturing into the lands between, Trebus is there to ensure you will find out. Like the four-armed monkey, he's the wake-up call that leaves a violent impression on first-time players. Unlike the four-armed monkey, the lesson he's there to impart isn't complete and utter bullshit. He's not there to take the piss, he's not there to ensure you'll have a bad time, he's not there arbitrarily or as a meaningless punishment. He establishes the rules of engagement. Tread carefully, be prepared, and don't fuck around if finding out isn't on your schedule for the day. Enemies like this are a messenger, whose message is communicated by making a mess of you. A messy messenger, if you will. I don't know, I spent ages trying to workshop something catchy and that's the best I came up with. Messy messenger.
I mean, delivering was right there.
It's a common but unsung role in many video games, and the judicious implementation of one can be a valuable teaching tool. Now, a good messy messenger is placed near the start of the game in a conspicuous position, tempting players to come and interfere with it, at which point it'll impart its humbling lesson. If that lesson is indeed that you don't stand a chance, the messenger should be in an environment designed to make alternative routes visually clear, to make the point that if you struggle against this enemy you could and should avoid direct conflict. Crucially, and this is a point games find it easy to trip up on, the messenger should establish rules that the game follows with some degree of consistency so the player can, you know, apply what they've learned. If the rules aren't followed, the messenger is a liar. If the rules aren't established, the messenger is a troll. And unless a video game's being designed by an arsehole, letting a trolling liar set the tone of the adventure isn't ideal. While there's never a golden rule that every game must follow, while rules and messages can be different in general, you want the enemy that's gonna leave the biggest first impression on your audience to mean whatever that impression is going to teach them. Trebus the Wood Boy is an absolutely fantastic enemy from a game design standpoint. He tempts players to bite and breaks their teeth when they try to chew, but does so in a location where avoiding him to progress is downright easy, and he establishes the rules that you can avoid the avoidable should you need, running away is a valid strategy, and you can always come back later when you want. Rules Elden Ring pretty much always follows.
Let's get on with it. Way ahead of you.
Powering up would be the smart approach.
From Software games are often praised for their tough but fair design. Now, it's not 100% the case that FromSoft's adventures behave in good faith. For the most part, however, they establish a set of rules, teach them to the player by sometimes harsh example, and give you a reasonable shot at applying those lessons throughout the course of your adventure. Even when it comes to ambushes, any good Souls-like will introduce you to the concept of them in a usefully demonstrative way, rather than just assault you with a bunch of attacks you couldn't have possibly anticipated and have no defense against. Oh, and one of the most important things about doing ambushes well, they should be used selectively. There's a balance that ought to be struck between having just enough of them to keep a wary player on edge and so many that even those most prone to false senses of security start to expect them, or worse, grow bored of them. Sadly, there are many Souls-likes out there that learned entirely the wrong lessons from the games that inspired them. Lords of the Fallen was a good Souls-like, but one thing it absolutely failed to properly grasp was the art of the ambush. It loves placing enemies around corners, especially if those corners can be eked out among the game's already ill-advised soft platforming sections, there are enemies whose purpose is to hide and shove you off ledges to your death, and they're all over the place, like a silly amount. Even with the first instance of it happening, it's more annoying than anything else, to say nothing of how overused this snotty little tactic is. Souls-likes love to think they're challenging, but I offer the designers of such games a challenge of my own. Try not to use ambushes as a crutch, and do some actual designing. It's like a good scare in horror media. I'm of the belief that even the much maligned jump scare can be a good tool in the horror box when used correctly, and not just hurled at the audience a dozen unearned times with the loud cacophonous noises that only serve to desensitize or annoy the hell out of you. Without building up the requisite tension, without establishing the mood, without drawing the audience in, all the jump scare has is a spoopy thing popping up out of nowhere. Things just popping up isn't scary, it's merely startling, and the returns on a startle diminish rapidly as one keeps going back to the desperate and undignified well. Speaking of which, how about that Silent Hill 2 remake, huh?
These two office workers are planning ahead for their weekly staff meeting, but what they can't possibly plan for is a surprise visit from Spaghetti. Let's watch.
These guys so spooked. I got you, spooked you.
Yeah, so Bloober Team's Silent Hill 2 combines everything we've just talked about into one mind-numbing, four-legged package. The mannequin monsters of Silent Hill 2 Remake epitomise weak ambushes, cheap jump scares, and the sheer detriment that relying too heavily on such things can inflict on a game. I've ranted at length elsewhere about the spammerquins of Bloober Team's Silent Hill 2. Enemies so ubiquitous in presence and monotonous in behaviour that the game is quite literally about them. And I can say with sincerity that I'm not hyperbolizing in the least. You can forget the original narrative, you can forget Pyramid Head. Silent Hill 2 Remake is built entirely around plastic leg monsters playing the worst game of hide and seek in the world. Bloober was so enamoured, so frigging preoccupied with these clitting things, they're more common than the enemies that are supposed to be the common enemies. So often do they inhabit the spaces behind furniture that it becomes the default setup of every room you enter. Eventually, a bit of furniture without a mannequin crouching behind it is an anomaly. You've not experienced truly hack-grade horror design unless you've been quote-unquote jumped by a consecutive series of mannequins doing a piss-poor job of hiding behind a consecutive series of couches and door frames. This screenshot is still one of the greatest visual self-demonstrations in video game history. If it were made by any other developer, I'd have asked what the fuck they were thinking, but I've played The Medium, I've played Layers of Fear, I've played Blair Witch. Bloober are the maestros of the lowest common denominator horror. They can think no other way. Developers who can put Dead Space on their resume ought to know better, however, but the Callisto Protocol proves that pedigree isn't enough of a safeguard against thoroughly rookie mistakes. I'm not saying this game loves its cheap jump scares, but if video games had genitals, the Callisto Protocol would exclusively masturbate to the pop-up pirate commercial. It's a fuck-awful game for many reasons, but one of the most personally infuriating are the manufactured ambushes in which you're grabbed by something and have to do a shitty little quick-time event to escape. These moments are not only scripted and thus unavoidable, they drain your health while you're doing the QTE. It's a game that caused me to coin one of my least catchy yet most personally favoured terms. Callisto Protocol helps itself to your hit points. Being scripted, you'd at least think they're spaced out to some degree, but nope. They occur constantly, with at least one section where 3 of the exact same ambush occurs 3 times in a cock-throttling row. I've said it in previous works, but it's important to bring up here. A truly great ambush or effective jump scare leaves you paranoid. It comes around just often enough to keep you in a loop of high and low tension, giving you time to breathe and maybe even start thinking you're safe before snapping that sense of security all over again. Some threats are so effective they never have to repeat themselves, making such a devastating impression the first time around that your fear of a repeat performance does all of the subsequent work. If the job's been done well, you're jumping at shadows. You're feeling relieved when you find an empty room, only to feel dread because that means the thing you were worried about is somewhere else. That's Paranoia, and Paranoia makes great horror. You can't be paranoid when there's a monster hiding behind every single sofa. You see a sofa, you know a monster's there. As I've said of the Spamakins before, it ain't paranoia when they are all out to get you. Silent Hill 2, the real one I mean, jump scared me exactly once. After hours of building up dread instead of puncturing the atmosphere for cheap thrills, the campaign guides you to the roof of Brookhaven Hospital where a note resides. After reading the note, you hear the scrape of Pyramid Head's knife and a moment of utter terror rushes in as it suddenly appears on screen. You have like 2 frames of control before a cutscene takes over and shoves you off the roof. It's over as quick as it comes, having waited until the surroundings were quiet and the player absorbed in reading a thing until striking with panic-inducing precision.
Don't scare me.
Younger viewers may find examples pulled from the original incarnation of Resident Evil a bit too schlocky, camp and old-fashioned, but my audience is almost entirely made up of my fellows among the dying and the decrepit, so sod the youth. This corridor is a legend for a reason, standing tall among the pantheon of great surprise attacks. It's one of those skillful scares that telegraph themselves in a way that only builds more suspense. This shot is perfect. The low angle, the devotion of on-screen real estate to the wall with a window. You know something is going to happen. You even know where it's going to come from. But what is it? When is it? What you know only makes what you don't know scarier. Like walking into a zoo to see no animals but a whole lot of cages with the doors wide open. All you can do is anticipate what comes next, and it's the anticipation that does you in. Patient! Did I do it right? It's one of the best uses of a fixed camera perspective in survival horror history. Even now, having known the what and the when since the chuffing 90s, I still feel intimidated by it. And that first Resident Evil is a mini treasure trove of examples of surprising players via differing techniques. We have that 0 to 100 shock scare of the dog snarling out of the void if you ignore Wesker's warnings, and
Open that door!
perhaps a bit more of a startle than a jump scare, but you already knew what was outside, and Wesker's warning embeds it with appropriate context, so I'll allow it. And of course we have the notorious itchy tasty diary entries, the documented mental descent of a man succumbing to zombification. It's a genuinely eerie bit of text, which makes the zombie hiding in the closet by the diary all the more horrifying for its poignancy. That last example there loops us back around to the notion of introductions. Setting up and contextualizing a threat is an underrated part of game design, but when it's done right it can be a vital component of how the audience engages with a game. Monster Hunter historically likes to showcase each imposing beast in its own cutscene, fucking up another monster. BioShock built up the Big Daddy in numerous ways before you fought one, with early glimpses, followed by verbal warnings about it, followed by a visual demonstration of its power, followed by more verbiage psyching you both out and up for the battle to come. Metal Gear Solid had you walk through a blood-stained corridor of slaughtered soldiers on your way to fight the ninja, at first only knowing that whatever you were walking towards was a thing of abject menace.
It looks like they were cut by some type of blade.
Oh, let's not jump to any conclusions, son.
Returning to Dark Souls, what is perhaps its most iconic enemy is simply there. It's there, with its back turned to you no less, just offering a free backstab opportunity. Is it really offering you, or is it in fact daring you to try? The way it stands stoically looking at an item one can only assume is valuable, visually distinct from the surrounding rabble of starter enemies, in an area that's already been conditioning caution into you, is kinda perfect. It gives you all the time in the world to worry, inviting you to make the first move in a way that encourages use of a specific mechanic. It's perfectly avoidable as well. The stairs to the boss are that away. Oh, and if you decide to fuck around, well, you know what's out next. The Finding. There's one surgically positioned Black Knight in Dark Souls' first area, and only a handful placed in specific zones thereafter, all incapable of respawning. As one of the most dangerous mobs outside of a boss arena, their presence is infinitely intimidating, and they're never obscured from view, unless you're tear-assing up those stairs in the Undead Parish. They don't need to be hidden, they're too cool, too imposing to be so gauche, and they're iconic as all fuck, in part due to their sparing use and impeccable presentation.
Great job.
Xenoblade Chronicles X is like if Dark Souls placed 2 Black Knights around every single corner. In fact, if you can imagine the imposing status of a Black Knight with the obnoxious prevalence and behaviour of Silent Hill 2 remake Spammerkins, that's Xenoblade Chronicles X right fucking there. And let me tell you, it's not fun. It's not fun in the tiniest, leastest way, and it runs counter to pretty much everything this video has been establishing. Look, I like this game, but fuck this fucking game. Replaying Xenoblade Chronicles X should have been a treat, and at times it really has been, but the frankly terrible design dictating enemy distribution has marred so much of the experience for me, and I know exactly what this game thinks it's doing with its hodgepodge distribution of enemies, but the lengths to which it goes to achieve a certain dynamic create directly opposite results to that intention. As soon as the game starts proper, you're thrown out into a world that has no regard for scaling. Level 5 beetles scurry around next to level 60 behemoths, gulfs of disparity that typify the entire world and the Xenoblade series as a whole. Theoretically, this is not a bad thing. There's something aspirational about a monster so huge and powerful that you know you won't be able to think about tackling it for a very long time. It's an environment that can work when it's done well. What Xenoblade's world strives to create is one that feels untamed and unpredictable, wild and dangerous, which is an aim I really rather like. What I don't like is a game that places such an emphasis on overpowered monsters that they impact every single step of progress you take. The volume of enemies tens of levels above you is beyond ridiculous, and while you're beneath the notice of many of them, about as many again will kill you on sight, which is exactly what they'll do again and again and again. There is an early level 3 quest where the objective is staked out by level 36 monsters. The monsters don't move, go away, they don't sleep, no matter what time of day it is. They don't even behave like other members of their species. They literally stand there, looking at the objective as if they are Black Knights in Dark Souls. But there's no alternative route. There's no message being imparted to the player. There's no mechanic you can take advantage of. I looked this up to make sure that I got it right, and I did. You're meant to just hope. You're meant to just run at the objective and hope you don't aggro them. And that is what you want to teach low-level players, is it? That your game is trial and error bullshit. I'll quote what I've written in the review of the definitive edition I'm currently drafting, because I find that few people can make the point better than Stephanie Sterling can. I am confident in saying 100% of my deaths were entirely because an enemy tens of levels above me intruded its way into a fight or popped out of the ground and totaled me in one hit. It is a constant issue, reaching a point of such sheer exaggeration I'm still in genuine disbelief over how often it happens. The scattershot distribution of enemies with wildly varying levels feels like part of a wild and unpredictable ecosystem for about an hour, after which the intrusions and ambushes become tiresomely routine. It's not unpredictable when it's the only nasty little trick in Chronicles X's book. That right there is the game's biggest problem. There's no elegance, no artistry to the enemy placement, unless we want to discuss the art of bullshit. Rather than encourage players to avoid monsters they've no hope of beating, Xenoblade Chronicles X delights in making those monsters unavoidable. It's not a difficulty issue, this isn't a challenge. Monolith Soft just wanted to win? Like, that's all I can think when I've been swindled into the path of some level 60 fuck nut for the dozenth time. Monolith Soft is out to beat the player, and to do so completely unfairly. And like, yeah, well done, here are your 3 W's. It's a shame you had to give the game such a big L to get them. When getting smashed to bits by an enemy 10 times your size becomes a routine 15, enemies 10 times your size cease to become impressive. After a few hours, I simply expected to have my battles spoiled by some interloper that had one-hit kill me. I simply expected to spend half my journey to a new destination desperately running away from a bunch of stuff and hoping the combat's MMO rules didn't fuck me over by connecting some twat's melee attack from 30 yards behind me. Chronicles is straight up nasty with its placement of high-level enemies, surrounding low-level quests with them, mixing them in with far weaker, identical creatures, and full-on making them invisible until you trigger an ambush. And I wouldn't mind so much if it happened just occasionally, but it's constant. You can practically hear the developers going tee tee as they laid out their vicious little traps. So yeah, any attempt to make the world feel unpredictable is tanked by exactly how predictable it is. After it becomes such a rote exercise, Chronicles X's big monsters are no longer surprising, shocking, or even aspirational. They're a tired routine one becomes sick of long before they'll be in a position to ever fight the damn things. With some of these enemies, I'm no longer at a point where I can't wait to level up a dozen times, get my big mech suit, finally, and turn the tables on them. I just don't want to see them anymore. They ruined the game for me too many times. Why would I want to engage with them anymore? I've spoken to several people who are more than happy to give Monolith Soft their W rather than waste more of their time having a distinct lack of fun in a game that won't let them just play it. And I can't blame anybody put off by the game because, well, the game goes out of its fucking way to put people off. Xenoblade Chronicles X is an abject lesson in how overexposure can damage an experience. It plays the same trick over and over again, one that was fun when a four-armed monkey did it the first time round, but only breeds more and more contempt with incessant repeat instances. It's such a good game, like it really is a good game, and has a ton of quality to its depth when you can crack past the near impregnable density of mechanics. But god damn does it work hard at not being liked, and all because it misunderstood the line between unpredictability and predictability, which is a surprisingly fine one for such diametrically opposed concepts. But once you've made a routine of a surprise, it stops being a surprise, and when getting invaded and ganked at level 20 by level 70 mobs becomes a rule instead of an exception, well, that's just fucking shit, mate. Oh shit. In my excitement to film Pogfucker, fucking Pogs, I completely forgot to do an outro. Thank God for me, I guess. Yeah, bye.